To recap, for those of you that are joining, we are examining marriage and the complexities, also 10 ways that you can actually show up in marriage. And so we have been going over this for the last 4 days because this is now Thursday. And so your midday fill up, I will be back on this evening for those of you that are joining us. And I do have the description um, inclusive of how you can also contribute to this platform and this ministry work here. So welcome in. I'm grateful for each of you taking the time out of your day. Um, and so, as always, I want to just kind of give a recap of the things that we've already discussed up until this point. And so, the first complexity that we have been discussing within a marriage setting is the fact that, 9 times out of 10, when you see problematic occurrences and it's relative to the male, what happens is they are immature spiritually, which means that they emotionally are not able to show up as a husband and as a father. So both of them are connected, and when they are connected, you see this dynamic that says, I am not able to express myself. I'm also not able to receive criticism constructively and have it be something that is going to allow me to better myself and my relationships. And then for the women, you typically see the narrative of not being able to respect and honor their spouse, that husband. And so it's a lot of different things that are attached to, a lot of different things that are associated with those roles. And while that is definitely the case, it requires you to be able to bring yourself to the table and know that you need to do the work. Okay, because a lot of people are not aware that they need to do the work, and then when they have things brought forth in constructive criticism, they're not able to take it. And so I love to tell people that whenever you're dealing with marriage, it should not be 50-50. It should be 100% and 100%. And then now you're coming together to create a new foundation for a futuristic relationship that you have vowed to be a part of. And so um, that leads to the next thing that we have discussed, which is the purity phase. So the purity phase is what happens before you even consider dating. During this phase, you're going to want to make sure that you're working on yourself and you're examining the very role that you said that you wanted to partake of. And so as you learn, as you grow, as you evolve, you start to have this particular, we'll just say, focal point of how you're supposed to purify your temple, how you are supposed to be preparing yourself for your future as a wife, as a mother, as a husband, as a father, as a woman that's going to be respectful and honorable to her household, her husband, and herself as well. And so, for that reason, you're going to want to have the ability to be able to receive that constructive criticism from your spouse and the person that you're desiring to be your lifelong mate. And so during that purity phase, that focal point should be just that. It should be you positioning yourself so that you can receive all of the different attributes that marriage has to offer. And so by the time you get to the dating phase, you now have set up that valuation. That's what you're bringing to the table. You should not just be showing up without carrying something. When you come to the table, you should be ready. It's just like when you get ready for an interview. You're going to do the preparation. You're going to do that leg work. And so I like to consider the purity phase as your orientation to your dating. Just like if you're going to college, you go through a series of different prepared workshops. You go to the college tour, you go to the orientation, and then you start to take classes that are going to prepare you for each different level. Marriage is no different. And so, as you go through that purity phase, you now enter the dating phase. And during that dating phase, this is going to allow you to express the things that you desire and the things that you exemplify. And when you start to do those things, you are now allowing this person to be exposed to who you are, and you're also learning and being exposed to who that person is that you've shown interest in. So, this is all a part of the things that most people don't consider. You just jump into a relationship, and what happens is you have people that are bringing trauma to a relationship, and then after you go through the engagement phase and now you're in the marriage, it does not work out because you have all of these problematic areas that have not been addressed in either one of the phases that were prior to the marriage, which are the dating and the engagement. when you start to date and you identify that this person, okay, well, I know that I'm bringing forth 100%, but this person is not able to express their emotions the way that they should, or the way that I'm desiring in a spouse and that I'm willing to accept. You have to consider these things. And I always tell people it's better for you to just cut it off and walk away than for you to get involved in something that's lifelong in such a type of commitment that is never meant to be dissolved outside of, scriptural reasons. And so you don't go in it with the idea of, I'm going to have a prenup and I'm going to have, an ironclad, contractual agreement. That's not what marriage is supposed to be. So for those of you that are joining, this is a spiritually led segment. So we are going to stand on scriptural principles. And so what that means is you're not looking at it how the world looks at it. You're looking at it how our Heavenly Father would have you look at it. And this is a lifelong partnership. It's exactly what it is. It is not a relationship that you just kind of lightheartedly take it and then you toss it to the wind. No, this is a lifelong commitment. And so you have to do the preparation work. A lot of people are not taking time to dissect scripture and to understand what marriage entails. So then when they get into it, after that honeymoon phase wears off, now you see people really for their true selves. You have two people whose dopamine have now worn off, and now you don't understand why you can't get along, because that's not the same person that they once were. And now you recognize all of those red flags that you just kind of let skim by during the dating and the engagement phase, and now you're here. 3 kids later, 4 kids later, 20 years later. And so that's what you want to make sure that you're identifying during that engagement phase. During that engagement phase, if your potential husband is not showing up and is not able to be emotionally available or attentive or very loving or kind, that person is more than likely not going to hold those characteristic traits in a marriage. And that's where the complexities of things need to be worked out. If they're showing these things, you have to believe what you see, not the potential that they can provide. Rule of thumb, just because they can doesn't mean that they will. And this is why you have couples, and I tell people all the time when I'm working with couples, this is why you see couples that have been together for 20 plus years and then all of a sudden they're getting a divorce. Well, it's not because that person just became that person. That person's always been that person. That person has now just exemplified something that has now come to a head, and that other person is no longer tolerating or accepting the things that were red flags that they did not address during the dating phase or the engagement phase. And so when you're considering these things, you need to address it during that dating phase, during that engagement phase, so that way you have the opportunity to either work on it or walk away from it. Because once you get married, that's not the ground for, unless it's involving infidelities or adultery, for you to walk away. And that's, something that we need to get back to teaching. I mean, you should not be on your third or fourth husband making the same mistakes or choosing the same type of person. If this is a habitual thing, then you have to start to do that examination as well and heal properly. You should not be moving on. If you were in a 10-year marriage, I'm saying this and I mean it wholeheartedly. If you were in a 10-year marriage, there's no reason that you should be moving on after a year, because you have a lot of work that you need to do in between you meeting someone new, so that you don't bring that baggage to the table. And so these are the things you're recognizing during the engagement. So then when you get to the actual proposal phase, you're now being proposed to and you're considering that proposal. So when you consider these things, if your wife is someone that is not someone that's respectful during your dating phase, or that's honoring you during your engagement phase, she is more than likely not going to be the type of woman that's going to honor and respect you that way during a marriage phase. And so if you see the tendencies of someone that just continues to desire to be a bachelor or a bachelorette, that person is probably not mentally prepared or housing the ability to be able to show up as a spouse, husband or wife, because it works both ways. And so you want to make sure that you're identifying and addressing those complexities, so that you are not showing up and then down the line it not being built on the proper foundation, because you want to just negate away from the hard conversations. You have to be emotionally mature and spiritually mature to have these type of conversations within a relationship that's going to lead somewhere and that's going to be able to evolve and grow. And so when you get to that marriage point, now we're going to talk about those 10 ways. Now that we've done the legwork of looking at complexities, we've done the legwork of looking at the purity phase, and you preparing yourself to be able to be in this role as a wife or a husband. You're now here in the actual marriage. What does that look like? We're going to talk about what that looks like. What that looks like is you showing up. How can you show up in your marriage? 10 ways and 2 bonuses. The first one is you have to be present. You have to be present. This doesn't mean that you just live together and you coexist. No, this means that you are actively attentive, that you are actually making sure that you are being intentional about how you're responding and you're being receptive to your spouse. The types of behaviors that you're exemplifying, this is how you're going to be present. You have to be present. Second thing is you want to make sure that you're being respectful, and this goes both ways. This is not just for the wife and this is not just for the husband. You have to be respectful. This means that you should not allow certain things into your dynamic, and there should be certain things that do not leave your dynamic. A marriage is a union between a husband and a wife. Everybody else is irrelevant. And so when it comes to the dynamic of marriage, allowing everybody in, that's where things get messy. You have to be mindful of who you are considering trustworthy to share things with. Because that person that you think means you well may be that person that is encouraging you to do something other than be married. And so, rule of thumb, if you choose to get married and all of your friends are single, you're going to have to put a cap or some type of really, really tight boundary on the behaviors that are exemplified from you transitioning from a bachelor to a husband, or a bachelorette to now a wife. So, the bachelorette to the bride. And so, you have to have that mindset to set the boundaries and keep it respectful. You have to respect one another. This means that you're doing things in a loving manner, that you're doing things and your heart posture is there to exemplify the very things that scripturally we are supposed to exemplify. And so this leads us to number 3. Number 3 is to be kind. Yes, after you've gone through that honeymoon phase and the dopamine has worn off, you may want to spew some unkind things. But it is important for you to understand that this is your lifelong partner, that you're committed to this person, that you should not want to spew things that are going to tear this person down, but instead you want to fill them with edification. You wanted to lift them up. You wanted to cover them. You wanted to cover them. You wanted to do all of these things that scripturally you have agreed to do and you vowed to do. And so for that reason, you want to make sure that you contain yourself, that you can be kind with your speech, be kind with the way that you present yourself towards your spouse. You are handling them with the utmost care. And so you're being kind. You're not spewing things that are going to be later on in your marriage. You're going to regret that you said, or you're not partaking in actions or activities that you're going to later regret down the line. You're being kind and you're making sure that you're being respectful. Number 4, you're going to make sure that you are forgiving. Thank you. No. But you have to make sure that you are actually forgiving. And by you forgiving, you are just practicing the golden rule, which means you're doing what? You are doing unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And so a part of that requires you to have this heart posture that says, I'm going to be grace. Bye. I do appreciate you being here, though. Thank you for watching. And so you have to be kind. A part of that being kind means that you're going to give grace. A part of being forgiving means that you're giving that grace. You're doing unto others as you would have them to do unto you. So your spouse is no different. You want to give grace, because if you're expecting your spouse to forgive you for things, because you're human. Thank you. I love you as well. Take care. You have to make sure that you're operating from a place of grace. When you're filled with grace, you are allowing yourself to extend something that this person necessarily did not earn. Just like our Heavenly Father gives us grace, we are extending that same thing. And so by you being forgiving and you giving that grace, you too are opening up that opportunity for you to be forgiven, because we're not perfect. You're going to screw up. You screwed up as kids. You screwed up as, in your career. You're going to screw up as a parent. You're going to screw up as a wife and as a husband. You have to get to the point where you understand that you have to give yourself grace. And a part of grace is considered forgiving. You have to forgive. It's a heart posture thing. And so that's a part of your character. And then the next thing is your number 5. And The 10 ways to show up in a marriage is going to be accountable. And when I was preparing for this lesson, I thought about and was led to this analogy. The accountant takes time to consider everything on the books, on the ledger. And so when you're thinking about marriage and accountability, you have to understand that there are going to be things that you contribute and things that you withdraw. Okay? So if you're giving, and never taking anything, then you're going to be depleted. But if you're taking, then you're going to be over capacity. And you don't ever want your marriage to be a one-sided street. So your accountability matters. So just like an accountant goes through the books and the ledgers, and he or she is going to examine everything that's going out, making sure that those things that are going out are making it to their destinations and being invested. That's what the credit is going to be. It's what you're doing, how you're investing, how are you contributing. And then those deposits, everything that's coming in, all of your credits are going to be received and they have to be invested. But then everything that you're giving out, you have to make sure that it's going and it's making it to its destination. And then a part of that requires for that accountant to examine everything going out. That's your debits. And everything that's coming in, those are your credits. But they have to balance. That's the thing. That balancing ledger is going to be so imperative in marriage. You have to be able to give and take. You can't just be a taker and you can't just be a giver. It doesn't work that way. We're human. We require for things to be filling up. We have to be filled up, just like we have to sometimes pour out. But you shouldn't be doing just one or the other. And so that accountability has to be there. So when there are conversations that need to be had, you are able to do those things from a spiritually mature place, from an emotionally secure place. And so that moves us to number 6, which is to be loving. A part of you being accountable is going to require you to forgive, to be kind, to be respectful, and to be present. You have to first show up. That's the being present. You have to also be respectful. When there are things that you need to discuss, you're talking about it, but you're being kind. And then when you get to an area that you need to display grace in, guess what you're doing? You're able to forgive because you're spiritually mature, considering the person that you vowed to commit to for a lifetime and exemplify all these things that you're now showing up and doing. And so that's the accountability part. And so by the time you show this love, it's going to cover a multitude of things that many people run from and that they have not considered. So in preparing for these things, in your preparation work, this is what you're learning, that this is what marriage involves. Marriage involves all of these things, and it has to be a beautiful blend of all of these things or it does not work. And then number 7, you have to be of value. What do I mean by be of value? You're like, okay, be of value. You attracted your spouse for a reason, just like you were attracted to your spouse for a reason. They brought a value that was unlike other people. It's the same for you. So when you are called to be of value, that means that after you enter into your marriage, you don't let yourself go. You don't lose your uniqueness. You don't transition into just a slob or a slothful person. You're not being intentional. You're not putting forth effort. You're just there. Lump on a log. That's not what you do. You have to continue to be of value. You have to continue to exemplify the very things that you brought to the table. And I'm not saying that you're going to be the exact same person. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is you don't just get to be laxed and do nothing. You don't get to just kind of reap the benefits and the rewards of a marriage and not show up and present anything. That's that balance. And so then number 8 is you're going to be intentional. It goes hand in hand with being of value. So as you're intentional about the things and the ways that you carry yourself and what you attribute to your marriage, you also are going to be intentional about showing up. So it ties in all of these beautiful attributes of how you are supposed to show up. You're being present, you're being respectful, you're being kind, you're being forgiving, and you're also being accountable. You're also showing that love, which covers the multitude of all of the others. You're showing that value. You're maintaining your valuation. And then you're being intentional about making sure that you're working on things and through things. You're not just housing things so that when the going gets tough, now you're going to just explode and be unkind and spew things that you're going to regret later down the line. You're being intentional. You're being intentional. And your intentionality is going to lead you to the next way that you show up in marriage, which is to be proactive. If it is something that needs to be discussed, stop putting it on the back burner. Thank you so much. You got to stop putting it on the back burner. You do not want to ever have something that is a concern. Spew and spew and spew. Hi, India. I'm going to have to write that down. Beautiful. I'm welcome in. But you have to be proactive. Thank you. You have to be proactive in your marriage, because a part of you being proactive means that you're ironing out things as they come up. You're not just putting it in the pot. I'm Jay. And so by you not putting it in a pot for it to boil over or fester into something that's going to now cause an explosion or an eruption, you are being proactive. You're acting upon things that need to be addressed from a mature place, from an emotionally mature place, and from a mentally mature place. And you should be able to do this, because if you are vowed or committed to someone to show up and exemplify all of these areas and things, you should be portraying that. And so you being proactive is going to be a part of you being intentional, which is a part of you bringing that value and being of value, which is a part of you loving and being loving, which is a part of you being accountable for your actions and being able to exemplify everything, which also connects to you being forgiving and giving that grace and extending it, because you too are going to need to receive that one day. So you're exemplifying the very thing that you're expecting someone else to give to you. And then you're going to be kind, because that's not what we do in marriage. We're not ugly. We're not nasty with our spouses. If we can't edify or we can't uplift with it, then we don't say it and we don't partake in it. We don't exemplify it. Golden rule in marriage. If it's not kindness, then you shouldn't be doing it. If it's not in a loving manner, you shouldn't be doing it. If it's not in a respectful manner, then you shouldn't be doing it. And so being kind is linked to your respect. Your respect. Okay? And then your respect is connected to your being present. And so this moves us on to number 10. Number 10, it sounds cliche, but it's not. Cliche sounds like be faithful. You would be surprised at how many people do not expect to be faithful. Yet they go on and they take someone's hand in marriage. Yet they go on and they accept a proposal, all for the wrong reasons. Because of the dress, because of the lifestyle, because of what I get out of it. Even though you're not considering this person's emotions and what it would do to them if you broke their heart. Because out of all of the things that marriages may go through, the one act of unfaithfulness, adulterous relationships, infidelities within marriage, is the one culprit that changes the dynamic and then they never recover from. Because it changes the entire dynamic. It changes the entire culprit of how you're operating. Now trust is broken. Now the very things that you could have just had a conversation about have already been, you've overextended. You've overextended in a way that's now transitioned this person emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. That is a lot to carry. So that one thing that one way that you can show up in marriage by being faithful covers everything else. It covers you being present. It covers you being respectful. It covers you being kind. It covers you being forgiving. It covers you being accountable for your actions. It covers you being loving. It covers you being of value. And it covers you being intentionally and proactive. Okay? And it covers you in preserving something that's meant to be preserved for a lifetime. So be faithful. And I have 2 bonuses for you guys. So the first bonus is going to be in conjunction with faithfulness. But you'd be surprised at how many people start out being honest, but then when the going gets tough, they start to do little things like tell little white lies. It's no such thing as a little lie, because if you tell it, then it has to keep being told. And that person is worth your honesty, your faithfulness, you being committed to be upfront and honest and open with them. There should not be anything that you have not discussed or disclosed with someone else that your spouse doesn't know. If you got to question whether or not you can tell your spouse these things, you shouldn't be telling someone else that. You shouldn't be partaking in it either. And so you being honest, that's the bonus. Bonus number one. Be honest. Be honest about how you feel about things. Be honest about how you feel, how you are receiving things, because we communicate in different styles. Sometimes what we mean to say is not what's received. And sometimes what other people are saying and they're trying to get us to receive, we're not understanding or comprehending in that way. So you want to make sure that you are being honest about these things. And so the next one is the last bonus, and it is cliche as well. But at the same time, you have to be excited, guys. Of course, we're going to end on a good note. That's what we do here. But you want to be excited about being married. You want to keep that momentum, that same motivation that you had when you were dating and you were pursuing towards your one. That person that you've chosen to do life with, that person that you've accepted the proposal to do life with, the person that you are building with, the person that you're growing with, the person that you are going through thick and thin with. It makes me think of that little portion of a song, whatever that song is off of whatever movie. Into the thick of it. Like when you get into the thick of it, you want to be excited with that person that you have overcome these storms, that you've overcome the challenges, that you've grown through seasons of life, because you're not going to be the very same that you were when you first met. You're going to go through things. When you enter into a marriage and you don't have children, you know that dynamic changes when you have children. So the very things that you thought you were going to be able to partake in, if you expected one kid and you have two, that's my story. I have twins. So that dynamic changes. We had one kid and then we went 1-3. It's not that right. We have 3 kids, so 1-3. It's not something that is, that you expect to do. But at the same time, you have to show up and you have to be excited. You have to maintain that momentum within your marriage. Okay? And so be excited. You have to be excited. You have to get excited. You have to date each other. You have to be kind to each other. You have to be intentional. You have to be intentional when the shifts and the seasons transition from it just being you two to now you have kids and now you have a career and you're growing and you're entertaining and you're observing both sides of your families, combining these different bridges. You have to be intentionally excited and you go through it together. And so that's the beauty in it. But yes, I just wanted to come on here and share the 10 ways that you can show up in your marriage. And I'm grateful for each of you who have joined, who've taken the time to sit with me and to go through these different dynamics. I will upload this. It will probably be sometime before Sunday. And so I'll be back on probably this evening and we'll try to go back over some of these. And then for the next segment, so if you are subscribing and you've already sat into this session, the next one that you can expect is 10 ways to show up as a wife. And so I look forward to seeing you guys there. And as always, I want to shout the guys out that have taken time to comment and also to make mention of just the different areas that we're actually expanding to. So I'm so grateful for this platform. Thank you. Peace and favor to you too. And so the first place that we have actually been able to reach is Brazil, followed by South Korea, Canada, UK, Philippines, India, Uzbekistan, Germany, South Africa, Ukraine, Vietnam, Trinidad and Tobago, Japan, Indonesia, Turkey, Australia, Iraq, Algeria, Bangladesh, Russia, Belarus, Colombia, Mexico, Italy, Syria, and Jamaica. And I saw someone from India in the house today. So I'm super excited that we are continuing to grow and continuing to make impact. And so Von W218F, thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. And he said I was mean, but I wasn't. I'm on topic. Don't complain in my comments. This is not the platform. And then at Plant-Based Vegan Black Man, thank you. Thank you so much for your presence and your comments and your support. And then we have someone, official Rajput 9 from India. So I'm excited. I love my participants. Y'all are from all over. And yes, so I'm grateful for you being here. And so, yeah. So if you have any questions before I get ready to wrap. Okay. Beautiful. I have a question. All right. So the question is, What's your take on a 45-year-old man entering into a relationship with a beautiful Luo woman? I have a bird flying at my window. From Kenya. She's 23 and wants to be okay. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this right. She wants to have 3 to 4 children. Um, I think that with this particular situation, it is going to require that type of communication. So are you dating? Are you currently dating her? Or are you considering dating? Clarify that for me before I move forward. So are you dating her or are you wanting to date her? And I'll just say this just to generalize it. If you are already dating, then this is that part where we were talking about those complexities. The complexities are the things that you need to bring to the surface before you move any further into anything else. Okay, so early phases of dating. So I would say this is something that can be worked out. If the male, because he is not, I'm not saying that you're old by any shot, but 45, you have to consider things because with children, the cost of living, how you're going to provide, these different things are going to play a tremendous, they're going to make a tremendous difference in your preparation. Do you have that nest egg? Have you been preparing already over the last 20 plus years outside of living as a younger man for a family? Because if you've already established those things, then it's going to be a different dynamic than someone that does not have any type of security and they're not bringing that to the table. And then outside of the children, are you the type of person that want to have 3 to 4 children? You may only want 1 or 2 children, especially considering that you're going to have to be the person that provides. So if the number of children is not a issue, and that as far as the age thing, some people are going to say that that's too much. I have a rule of thumb I like to say is, if this person has lived long enough to experience life as an individual and has emotionally matured and spiritually matured and can show up to provide in the manner that they need to for the role of a wife or a husband, then the age bracket shouldn't be as big of a deal. But if you have someone that's 45 and now they're fresh out of school or fresh out, out of their mom's, I don't agree with that. And it's a number of reasons, because it's always this dynamic shift in a relationship where the older person looks at the younger person as a parental figure. And so it's more authoritative versus a mutual respect and genuine love for one another. It's not just a person that you should be just bossing around. And so, if that's not something that's going to be problematic, then I don't see an issue with it. Okay. So you already have 3 children. So does she have children? Does she have children? So it's already 3 children present. Does she have children? Because blended families, they exist. And as long as everyone can be respectful and it's mutual and it's scripturally sound, I'm not saying go steal someone's husband and make another happy family or take someone away from their family. That's not what I'm condoning. But if you already have children and she does not, and she becomes your wife, of course, she's at the prime of her. She's very much in her youth, really. She desperately wants to, exactly. Okay, so yes, I would say that, I don't say move forward rapidly, because it should be a timing to things. I get that she wants to have children and she wants to be married, but you don't definitely want to rush into something and not have the things that need to be discussed, the things that need to be put on the table, and the logistics of everything in order. You want to do things in an orderly fashion, because that's how marriage is supposed to be constructed. This is why so many fail. They don't consider these things. So it's just like you right now taking the time to do this work. It's necessary. It's necessary so that when you get to the point where you're either going to propose to her or be engaged, she understands all of the work and responsibility that comes along with being a mother to two or plus kids. Well, it's got to be more than two kids now because you have three of your own. I don't know how old they are. Okay. So would you guys be together? Would you be doing a separate living, or would this be a combination living? Because it's one thing for her to want to do these things for the sake of her mother being a part of the children's lives, but at the same time, if her mother's in poor health, she's not going to really be attributing to the dynamic of her coming and, becoming a mother. It's more so she's probably going to have two roles and responsibilities in on top of, the dynamic of being a wife and a mother. She's going to have that role as a caregiver to her mother who's in poor health, and that can be an added stressor to the relationship. This is one of those areas where, you see the dynamic shifts. We just talked about that. Within a marriage, you're going to experience different life challenges and life experiences. And so just like you're saying, if this person is going to have to go and be a caregiver, or she may have to come and reside with you and her, that can be something that can be a challenge and also a strain on the marriage, financially, mentally, emotionally, all of those. Okay. Okay. The youngest is 18. You have twins. Likewise, twins are fun, right? Okay. So all of your children are grown. So that changes the dynamic a little bit. So if they're grown, then, I would say consider having the conversation and determine how soon you are willing to do this. How well do you know her? Have you known her long enough for you both to examine the characteristic traits that you both can attribute to a marriage and a dynamic? How long have you been dating? How long have you guys been dating? She seems like she's very okay. She doesn't like America. After a few weeks, she's ready to go back. Okay. Okay. And so that's one of those questions. That's something to talk about. This is you being proactive. This is her being proactive. It has to be an agreement. So, she doesn't get to say, okay, well, I'm willing to stay in the States. Okay, so you're very familiar with one another, just not in the capacity of dating. I got you. Okay, so in that case, you know each other well enough to know that, know where her flaws are. So if you can work on those and work through those, and you're willing to accept her as she is, and you're really considering genuinely proposing to her and moving things to the next level, then you have to be confident in that. But I don't want you to move forward if you have not ironed out these things. If she doesn't like the state, so what does your living situation look like? Where are you going to reside, especially after you have children? Because you don't want her to get into something and then she resent that you're not there. If you're living here part of the time and there part of the time, that means that she's going to be by herself part of the time in the role as a mother and a wife. So is she okay with that? Is she accepting that? And is that something that you want? You have to consider that as well. Okay, so if she's okay with it, then I would say you guys continue to set your foundation, talk about things extensively so that you have come to a happy median and you have resolved all of the questions and concerns. So if you know that you're okay with marrying her, and she's showing up and she's exemplifying the role of a wife, or the material that she needs to bring, the value that should be added as a wife, move forward. Especially if you know that your concern and your care for her is, so much so that you want to be able to provide her with the gift of allowing her mother to be present. Okay. So if you're permanently moving to Kenya and that's where she is, then, let me see, because you did say, okay, permanently moving. Okay. Yeah. So if you're moving to Kenya, then it shouldn't be a problem with as far as like your location. But yeah, so no, if she wants to, if your children are currently all raised, and then you want to move out of country to be with her, and that be where you raise your family, then there shouldn't be an issue. There should not be an issue. But once again, I do want to clarify. I'm not saying that if you're already with someone that you should leave your spouse and go there. We're talking about if you have never been married and, or if you were divorced for adulterous reasons, then move forward. Just want to clarify because I don't want you to think I'm just saying, hey, just go do it because you like somebody else. No, that's not what we're saying. Does that explain it? That's my take on it. So I'm going to clarify. Um, so you're going to be moving to Kenya permanently in 2 years or less. And the dynamic is to go ahead and get married so that she can experience life. Okay, good. Okay, good. I love it. I love it. Not a passport, bro. You better not be. Okay. Um, but yeah, I applaud you. So moving forward with this young lady to be able to make her your wife and officially, formulate your relationship as husband and wife, and then introducing those children as her womb is able to bear, and enjoying the time that she has with her mom. I think that would be a very good start of displaying your love and your care for her. I definitely would say that would definitely be something that is outside of yourself, so it shows that you're not a selfish person in considering these things, even though you already have older children, and this would require you in a sense to kind of start all over. But at that same time, you have shown interest in this young lady for that reason. So I think that it would be a beautiful start, especially if you guys are clear on your communication. You are showing up and you're present and you're having these conversations and from a mature place. So if she's a woman that is displaying maturity spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, then I think that this would be a good move for you guys. So that's my take on that. Thank you for asking. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, guys, I'm gonna wrap here. And then, like I said, I will be back on this afternoon for those of you that are coming in, and I will repost this live so that way you can go back and watch it. You're so very much welcome. Thank you so much for being here and being active. We will be showing up and we will be doing a segment on 10 ways to show up as a wife and looking at the different complexities that we face as wives and as women. So I look forward to that time with you guys. I do try to post on the community. I really do need to do better on when I'm going to go live, but I typically will go live in the middle of the day, Eastern Standard Time within US, or at night. And at nighttime, it's going to be around maybe between the hours of 10 and 12. So I know that's kind of broad, but at the same time, if you are subscribed to the channel, then I try to give you some type of indication that we're going to go on. Okay. So for those of you that have taken the time to support, comment, like, subscribe, send me a heart, just even comment and just keep this platform continuing to grow. I'm grateful for you. And I just pray that all things heavenly find you. And I'm going to close this out in prayer and then we'll dismiss. Oh, wait a minute, Kenny. No, I do. I will. I will. I sure will. I will. Um, Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity for you to use me as a vessel to be a light and to share all of the different gifts and skill sets that you've allowed me to receive over the course and duration of my lifetime. Father, I thank you for each person that has shown up today. I ask that you just give them a double portion of your favor and that you allow favor to find and keep them in every capacity of all things heavenly, Father. And I just pray that you bring those that are meant to be at the next appointed time there, and you do so safely, Father. Allow them to have a good duration of the rest of their day. In your precious name I pray. Let it be. All right. All right, guys. That is it. If you don't have any questions for me, I'm going to let you go. All right. Until next time, go be great and always say something kind. Show up and be the light in the room. Don't dim yourself up for somebody else to just, destroy who you are. All right. We don't do that. We don't dim ourselves down. We walk into the rooms and we illuminate it. All right. You're the light in the darkness. Be the salt of the earth. All right. I love you guys. Take care.